Hi, this is Regina White Favors. I have a new series titled Overcoming Hate Setback Series. And so this is basically the introduction to the series. And I have taken upon myself to address hate because I was watching a YouTube video of the YouTube channel was Big Ward the Genius. And he had a particular video, and I think it was titled "Dear Black People, Stop Telling Black People Everything You're Doing." And in the middle of the video, he makes an interesting statement that it just caused my whole heart and mind to leap. And what that statement was haters don't want your help. And I don't know how many times that we might have heard that. I'm quite sure he's not the originator of that statement, but the lead up to what he was discussing was about a woman who took over the role of a black woman who took over the role of a white man that she served for 12 years. And then when she took over the role, the other black people who were employees also, they decided to quit just because she was not going to be in charge of them. And it was a prime example of people hating on people, and he made it about black people hating on people uh, once they get into particular roles. So I thought that was very interesting, and I just kept replaying that and replaying that, and because it hit so much closer to home because of my own experiences, childhood, romantic relationships, friendships, right? And that a hater doesn't want your help says so much. It's not just a hater doesn't want to help you, but a hater, as he noted within the particular video discussion, that they would rather starve to death than to let you help them. That I'm quite sure you have someone in your life who has uh, sort of act like they wanted your help, but then when you push to help them, or if they didn't ask for your help, you just offered your help because you heard the situation. You heard them, talking about the situation, and you say, "Hey, I got the help." And somehow the push and pull, instead of receiving your help, they just decided to reject you. And they reject you, but at an arm's length. Like, for instance, they will push you to pull you back, or they'll keep you at arm's length, go through this whole emotional, mental, psychological exercise of rejecting you, and then sort of gaslight you at the same time, to make it seem like, oh, you just don't want to help them, when in reality you've been trying to help them. And so I just thought that was very interesting, because the dynamic between people, of course, has been studied. And we usually think about hate in terms of racism, erase racism, right? Erase the hate. But you can have everyday hate with people. People who hate you because you do something very well. People who hate you because of the knowledge that you have. And the knowledge that you have required you to pick up a book and read it. Essentially, you don't come out of the womb knowing that information. You have to pick up a book, read, test, receive instruction, etc. But they're going to hate you for the very thing that they can get themselves, or or do themselves. Okay? They can hate you for the money that you have. They can hate you because you're good with your money. They can hate you because of the house that you have. They can hate you for a number of reasons. Well, one of the things that I was thinking about, because I put this presentation on hold so that I can get a good understanding and think about it and reflect on it. And one of the things that I realized with hate, with people who hate you, it is essentially that they don't want to change. It is something in you that they need, and it is something in them that you need, and you're willing to receive for the person from the person, but the person is not willing to receive from you. And so they think what they do is they hoard knowledge, or they hoard skill, or they hoard talent and gift, or they hoard capacity, capability. They have it to give, or they have the capacity to do it, but they're refusing to do it. And so they withdraw help, they withdraw any instruction or wisdom, knowledge, anything like that, out of pure hate. They don't want you to have it, they don't want you to know it, they don't want you to move forward. It reminds me a lot of Jonah in the Bible, and God's sending him to Nineveh to preach to the people, and he refusing, and he decided to go his own way, which led to a boat, and then he was on the boat, and then the men kicked him out off because the boat was going crazy, and then he falls into a whale, a big fish, and then he stays in there, I think, for 3 days, and then the fish spits him back out, and the fish spits him right back out where he started. And so then he ends up having to go to Nineveh and preach, right? And he still have an attitude, even after he did that. He's basically saying, "See, I told you that they will be better, right? But that was the whole goal. That your goal in a person's life, right, depending upon if you're supposed to be in that person's life and add any value, is to improve their life. In the same way that if they're supposed to be in your life, they are supposed to improve your life. But when you withhold, when you hate, and when you withhold and reject and push and pull and reject change, you become stagnant. You stay where you are. You cannot move forward because a lot of times God will use people to give you something, right? Whatever it is, to move you forward. They represent a door. There's a scripture in the Bible, I think Revelations, that God opens doors that no one can close, and closes doors that no one can open. And if God is using a particular person as a door, you're walking through the door, that person holds a specific set of knowledge, or a specific set of skills, or wisdom, or financial provision that God is using that person to help you with. If you reject that person, you may never get what it is that you need to get to the other side, because God is using that person, and if you are rejecting that person, and it depends on God and his prerogative whether or not he brings that person back around seasonally. But if your season is supposed to, if a particular season is supposed to be you walking through a particular door, like my door, of course, was school, right? I went to college. I got a bachelor's, master's degree in English. I had a mentor in college. He was a door. He was a door that caught me up in my understanding about college and preparation and not being a procrastinator, right? Well, that's the same type of door that when my students come through my classroom, I catch them up. I prepare them for transition, right? So what I learned from a mentor, I now apply. And I didn't know specifically at that time that I was going to become a teacher. But it was important to learn what I needed to learn, so that many years later, that I would have that experience, that knowledge, receiving from him, to apply it in a more professional position. There's a particular individual that I was introduced to, and he's into marketing. And right before I met him, well, not met him in person, but he reached out. He wanted to create digital ads for me, um, for my books. And I was very not quite sure if I should do it, because even though I was thinking about creating um, a marketing plan and I was considering it, I wasn't ready to. I was working on the books. I was working on YouTube videos. I was doing a lot of other things, and plus I was teaching. But I said to myself, it came to me. I said, well, what if God is using that person to help you in this area? Now, I didn't know that he was going to be a door to marketing, it turned out that I got the revelation about that probably like a year after. And so in looking at his stuff, his website, and listening to a video interview that someone conducted, I heard I was able to discern what it was that was going on in terms of the marketing. And then for me, in order for me to retain it, I have to teach it to myself. So I created a presentation and I put audio to it. I did as much as I could so that I could understand it. Do you not know that that was the beginning? Oh, going through that door and accepting um, his help, and he's the one who created the Regina Y Favors logo. He never created the digital ads. Our business together came to a conclusion, no problem. But I learned so much in teaching myself the marketing, which resulted in the books, the video lectures, um, the conference attendance, exhibitions, all that kind of stuff. However, had I not gone through that door and accepted whatever help that he was offering, which was at that time the logo, I would not have been able to know what was on the other side of that door. It is so, I have created so much from walking through that door. Uh, the, the favors marketing lessons, the video lectures, the ones that I created for him, the books, everything. And so, and I'm still working on it, and I'm still working on my tentative marketing plan. So I say all of that to say that the hate that you have towards someone can really be more detrimental to you. And it doesn't always have to be race based hate, it doesn't have to be political hate, it doesn't have to be, religious hate, it doesn't have to be spiritual. It can be straight up jealousy hate. Just you are jealous of that person. You don't like the fact that the person has what they have. And I don't know for certain if you really want to have what they have. It's just that you don't want them to have it or something, right? And so keep this in mind as you go through this series, Overcoming Hate Setback series, because you could really hinder your own way if you decided to not receive. You don't know what door God is presenting to you, whether you believe in God or not. Even if you were an atheist or someone agnostic or something like that, and a door presented itself to you through a person or through an education program or through a learning opportunity. It could be a conference. It could be um, a continuing education course. It can be anything that if you walk through that door is going to advance you. Now you're going to have issues, of course. You're going to have to learn something new to advance yourself. You're going to have to receive instruction. You're going to have to do the work, but it's a door. And so when you decide that you don't want to receive from someone, meaning that you have decided that you're going to hoard knowledge. You're not going to tell that person what they really need to know to move forward. When you decide to do that, all you do is really hold yourself back, because in telling that person, you're teaching that person, you're mentoring that person, but you also get to hear what you are saying to that person. And the more you hear, and it all comes from the Lord, the more that you hear it, the more that it becomes part of you. And then later you could decide to create workshops or create teaching learning materials or something like that. So you miss out on the opportunity. There's a huge opportunity when you decide that you're going to reject someone. You miss out on the opportunity to learn as well. Your jealousy is going to hold you back. Your hate towards someone is going to hold you back, and you can't blame that person just because you decided not to accept their help, or you decided that you're not going to let them help you. So this is Overcoming Hate Setback series. You You can visit reginayfavors.com, the main website, as well as the online store, reginayfavorsauthor.com. So this is the introduction to the series. Thank you very much for listening. All right, so this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. And if you want more information concerning the introduction to the series, go ahead and listen to that video. But this is haters withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in their power to do so. So this is Proverbs 3:27. Okay, so withhold good essentially withholding knowledge, withholding skill, withholding a level of instruction, mentorship, right? Something that you have that they need, but you have decided not to give it to them. You've decided to withhold whatever is on the inside of you to keep them from having it because you don't really want them to advance. And that's to your detriment when you do something like that because it doesn't work uh, when it's just on the inside of you. It's something about it needing the something that's on the inside of you needs to connect with something else or somebody else so that it can work properly. Sometimes it could be a marriage, like one person is searching for another person, something on the inside of that person, and when they come together, vision comes together. Everything comes together to work properly, right? And so think about it sometimes how a person decides not to tell you that going down the wrong road is going to be a problem. That if you go down that path right there, if you go down that path, it's you're going to find all different types of hurt and pain, mockery, all different types, right? They decide to just let you fall. They could have told you you're not even the person who decided to not listen to them. They just decided to withhold knowledge. And withholding good, if you think about the person um who is a marketer, right? Say for instance, the person is a marketer and the person knows a particular demographic or knows a particular geographic area and what that geographic area needs. And so you think, okay, I'm going to seek that person's counsel to get help, right? To get help. And the person doesn't make himself available or doesn't make herself available. And that person has visited that demographic, has worked with that demographic, has worked with the geography, knows the ins and outs, knows the pitfalls, knows where to sell, where to market, etc. And I'm not saying that you can't do your homework. You do need to do your homework. There are plenty of statistics and information that you can find on the internet. You can't solely rely on somebody to do your work for you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's specific knowledge that that person has access to, and that person is refusing to give it to you. It's within his power to give to you. There, I'm a Ronald E. McNair scholar. I was a scholar in college, and there were two types of people that I dealt with when I was doing research. There was a person who was in my field, and I could barely get anything out of. But then I went to another completely different professor who was of a different discipline, and I told him what I was trying to do. And I think he was probably education discipline or sociology. I can't remember. And I told him, and do you not know he was so excited? He pulled out so many journal articles that he had in his office. He just kept giving them to me. When I left there, I had a stack of direction. He didn't do my research for me. He had good in his possession. He had already printed all of those journal articles, used them likely himself or just put them off to the side. And it was almost like it was a divine thing that God told him to do that before he even knew that I was going to come to his office. Even to this day, I can't tell you how I got to his office, how I found out about who he was. I could not tell you for the life of me. But I remember that I just basically told him what I wanted to do as a research project, and he began pulling out everything. And like I said, by the time I left there, I left with of direction, a stack of direction. And so then I was able to then go and further research because in some ways he saved me time. I still had work to do on my own, and I still had to compose it and put it into a format for a scholarly article. But he did not withhold good. He did not withhold good. Another example is me. I struggled in college with procrastination. I struggled before college. When I graduated from high school, I thought I was going to go into the military. That didn't work out, and I didn't have a plan. I did not have a plan. And then when you don't have a plan, you end up taking anything because you didn't have a plan. So I went to work full time. Then I ended up going to college. Um, and then I stayed with it. And then I relocated to San Diego. And then I went to junior college there. And then after that, I transferred to San Diego State University. What I realized from that experience of not having a plan was that is something that I adopt today. Is you need to have 2 years of transition planning. You know you are going to graduate from high school, or you know you're going to graduate from college. So in junior, senior years, that's when you plan. You don't wait till you graduate from high school or college to have a plan in place. You begin, go ahead and transfer and get into the college and enjoy yourself. Buy the T-shirt, buy the book bag, etc. But as soon as you get a little bit kind of relaxed, get back on your mission. And the mission is 2 years of planning. Well, I design my assignments around that concept. I have students do an annotated bibliography over the schools that they want to attend. I teach at the community college level. And so the time that you're at the community college is not for you to do your basics. That's obvious. The time that you have at the community college is to plan your transition to the university. You don't finish all of your coursework at the community college level and then later decide, okay, now I need to plan. No, you're planning your 2 years. So if you're taking 4 classes a semester, the fifth class is your planning, and that's per semester. So I have created an annotated bibliography where they have to research the schools that they are interested in attending and then create the annotated bibliography. The target is still composition using MLA or APA and research, etc. I just use the topic of researching your schools as a way for them to do the research now. And then after that, once they have finished the annotated bibliography, they then write a personal statement, because you cannot write a personal statement if it's not informed of the schools that you want to go to, that you want to get to. So I've created video lessons, downloadable worksheets, etc. So in other words, I did not withhold good. That was a struggle for me. I decided to use that struggle as a teaching exercise, right? And so now, when students leave my class, they are so aware of the importance of planning that it becomes part of them. Sometimes they care, sometimes they don't, but it is important for them to understand. In other words, haters will withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in their power to do so. In other words, they are usually the people of everything that you need is something that they have experienced. And that instead of telling you those experiences and giving you instruction and direction, they would rather just withhold it. So haters withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in their power to do so. Uh, you can visit reginawhitefavors.com for more tips and resources. Thank you very much for listening. All right, so this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Haters do not respect counsel. So, again, make sure to review the introduction to the series if you need further information, as well as any of the other videos. I think when it comes to haters do not respect counsel, I really probably should have put good counsel, because there's counsel that they will accept, right? And a lot of times the counsel is going down the wrong path. But if they are a hater, and they don't respect counsel, even if, I think they might be people who also mock even bad counsel. Because I think what it is that they have likely a superiority complex, and anything that you say, whether it's good or bad, um, is just not deserving of respect. They don't respect you. They may respect somebody who doesn't want them, who doesn't want to receive from them. In other words, they may respect another hater. It's sort of like that people pleasing complex that people have. They may respect another hater. But in a general sense, haters do not respect counsel. They will go around the mulberry bush and accept um, counsel from everybody else with the knowledge that you are the one who has the counsel that they need. There's a counsel that this is not to reduce the value of other people who could share counsel with them. That's not what I'm saying, because you don't really need to listen to everybody, right? Under the sun, you need to listen to a certain person. And it depends upon the season, it depends on what you're doing. A person who is not in a certain type of field trying to give you counsel and they have no insight into it, is probably not the person that you should listen to. Now, they can give you life counsel. They can give you, they may not be in your field, but they can give you life counsel. Okay, that's different, right? You need to manage your money better, right? You need to cut some of your friends out. You need to set boundaries with your family and friends, right? There's life counsel, and I feel like everybody on some level, whether good or bad, can give you some advice about life counsel. If you have a person who has gone to prison, they can show you something. They're already showing you that they went down the wrong path, and they keep sustaining that decision to stay on the wrong path, and they are not willing to reach out to something else to change their position. Position in this way means argument. They're not willing to change their life argument. If you have someone who keeps going back and forth into prison, back and forth, and the prison industry and researchers call that, um, they call it recidivism, right? The person who goes out and then stays out for a minute and then they go back in. Okay, if you have a person who continues to do that, okay, uh, that means they are not accepting of change. Uh, they're not looking at their age. Okay, if you go in your 20s, well, you got strength. But if you keep going back in your 30s and 40s, when you're going to be in your 50s and 60s with the snap of a finger, you're not listening to good counsel. You're not discerning your age. You're not discerning the opportunities that they are providing for you. Maybe take a computer class, maybe take something to improve your life, something to prepare you when you go out. The first thing that people need to always consider is going to college. I know people like to say, well, college isn't for everybody. But all college is just learning, testing, writing, reading, etc. But if you don't want to go the college route, you can go the apprentice route. And I don't understand why people don't see that as good counsel, as counsel. It's telling you that you could become this if you take our program for 8, 9 months, or 12 months, or 18 months. Do an apprenticeship, and you will be this. Or do a 2 year community college degree, associate's degree, and you'll have a job. Or do 2 years and then transfer to the university. All of that is good counsel. It's all instruction. And I don't understand why people really do have a problem with instruction, that they would rather ignore you. It's almost heartbreaking that they would rather ignore you. You are the person who has shown the example that if you set a task, set a goal, endure a goal, and complete a goal, this is what you would look like. And they would rather look at you and mock you and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Even though you have the experience, you can show them. The haters do not respect counsel. They will, I don't know if that is a fear, but like I said at the beginning in the introduction to the series, it has a lot to do with change. And they don't want to change, because if they accept your counsel, then they will be responsible. And people don't want the responsibility, the weight of that knowledge roaming around in their head. Because then the person couldn't say, well, I didn't know. I didn't know. Nobody told me. Nobody told me anything. I didn't have nobody telling me. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Even if you didn't have a physical person, a human being telling you, you had video advertisement. You had uh, the boards, the stuff that they put on the big boards, right? You had that. You had an example of a person who was going to school. You had you had somebody in your high school. Either way, you have had somebody to tell you something, and you just refuse to receive from that person, because whatever is with that person you hate, you're jealous of. But the very thing that that person has, you can have yourself. You don't have to hate that person. So this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Haters do not respect counsel. Go ahead and visit reginawhitefavors.com for more tips, as well as reginawhitefavorsauthor.com, which is the online store. Thank you very much for listening. All right, so this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Haters provoke you to anger. And this is something that I have personal experience with. And this is a likely a lot of what gaslighters do. People who tend to gaslight. It's a psychological game that they like to play. And I think with haters, when they provoke you to anger, I think it's to get you off your path psychologically. Somehow they cannot take you off the path physically. They can't get you to stop going to school, or they can't get you to stop going after your dream, or they can't get you to stop advancing at your job. Whatever the physical aspect of you moving forward, they can't get you to stop that. So then the only way to come against you is to project their anger or pour their anger into you. So they will provoke you to anger. They will start a argument. They will mock you while you are trying to explain a concept. They will try to tell you that in so many words, you really can't accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish, right? Because you really not that kind of person. You don't study. You don't do this. You don't do that. They speak negativity. They speak death. Like you've always heard someone. say, speak life into somebody. Okay. Well, they decided that they're going to speak death into you. That's what they would rather do. And so it's almost like they see the vision of what it is that you're trying to get to, and they're trying their best to throw every bit of mental, psychological roadblocks to keep you from it. So then they'll begin, if they can't get you to uh, stop being motivated emotionally and psychologically and mentally, they'll start bringing areas of their life into your life that put you in harm's way. They will, they'll tell you, okay, I'm just going to go over here right quick. I promise I'll take you home. Okay. And then somehow they've gone over into an area that's a dangerous area. They go into the house and they sit in the house, leave you in the car. Okay, it's a dangerous area, or it's just dangerous, period, right, as a strategy. And then an hour or two pass by, and the person comes out, and you ask him, okay, I thought you were just going to go in and go get something. What is this? And then instead of looking at the situation logically to just explain what happened, they'll get mad at you and say, why? You don't have anywhere to go anyway. What's the big deal? Why you always get upset every time I come over here? Right? They come up with all different types of strategies to get you mad, and then you're mad the rest of the trip home, right? Because they finally take you home, and then they'll start pulling at you emotionally. Okay, don't be mad at me. I'm sorry. Right? It's an emotionally abusive situation, essentially. It's an emotionally abusive situation, and that's what they're doing to provoke you to anger. Think about any relationship that you've had where they tried to gaslight you. They know exactly what they did to you, but they try to make it out to be like you're the one who's crazy, and that you're taking it too personal, right? When they provoke you to anger like that, and you might be passive aggressive so many times, eventually you are going to blow up. You are going to blow up. It's going to happen. Situation, I moved in with a friend girl. She acted like she wanted me to roommate with her. She had just gotten out of a relationship, and I was hoping that she wouldn't bring another man into the house. She said she wouldn't, so I mistakenly went and moved into her house, into the room, because I was paying $650 and she was offering, I think, $275 or something like that. So who wouldn't want to have that kind of deal? And plus, she had a kitchen. I didn't have a kitchen in my place. It wasn't 3 months hadn't passed. 3 months really hadn't even completed that she started acting up. She started acting up. It didn't take long at all. And I'm trying to figure out, why is she acting like this? This doesn't make any sense, right? And so conflict. And then I would bring my friend Guy over to the house. We all knew each other because we used to work at the same job. And somehow they started hanging out with each other behind my back, and I didn't know it at the time. They kept it quiet. Neither one of them said anything, so therefore, why would I think anything else, right? And so then the conflict at the house progressed. um, we ended up having a shouting match or something like that. She called me out of my name. The friend guy and I ended up having to break things off, and I broke things off this time because I just wasn't going to let him, mistreat me. And she sort of created the environment so that it could be toxic to provoke me to anger. And so when I decided to go on ahead and move, she was quiet the whole day, just quiet the whole day. I had all my stuff packed. I was waiting for another friend to come and pick me up. And when that friend came to the door, and I started to move out, the woman just all of a sudden got all upset. She went and called her friend. She brought her friend over there to almost like fight me, and it didn't make any sense because it didn't make any sense at that time. I left that situation very traumatized. It took some time to get over that uh, situation, but I look back on it now. There was something about me that she hated. One, I think the friend that I was friends with, the guy, he was good to me. He was good to me. He took me out, and he was just a friend guy, and he took me out, and he gave me things. He cooked food, etc. Well, my big mouth talked about what he did. My big mouth talked about what he did for me, and so then she saw it as a jealousy opportunity, not an opportunity to say, "Hey, girl, I'm glad that's for you," because she had already had a man. He was they had already begun talking, dating. They later got married. So why would she need to be upset with me and my friend, um, and what he was doing with me? Well, my main mistake was telling her what he did for me. That was my main mistake. So that provoked anger in her, even though I wasn't trying to provoke anger in her. But she got angry at it and jealous about it, and she started to design a strategy where she would come out in her um, in her Daisy Dukes, right? She didn't dress like that before. Then she would invite, I mean, he would invite her to come with us, so she wouldn't feel alone at the house. And she would come out in her Daisy Dukes, and she would come along. When her boyfriend invited me to go somewhere, I said no, because I know that's her man. I don't want her man to have to pay for me. So I was never angry about her situation, but she was angry about mine. And so haters provoke you to anger because of some sort of jealousy that they have about what you have. And so now they're trying to separate you from it. And that's more along the lines of envy. But now they're kind of trying to throw obstacles. And usually, if they can't get you to stop going to school or stop going to promote your business or stop doing anything physically, they will begin to work on you emotionally and mentally and psychologically. And so then the weight of them working on you is expected to bring you down and hopefully get you to stop anything that you are doing. So, overcoming hate setback series. Haters provoke you to anger. Go ahead and visit reginawhitefavors.com for more tips and resources. Thank you very much for listening. This is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. And so the title of this one is Haters Frame You as a Problem and Not as a Solution. And I want to talk about this. Make sure to listen to the introduction to the series because it links hate or haters with the idea that they don't want to change. That's why they tend to continue and sustain their hate. Always remember that you are a solution to a problem. You're not a solution to every problem. And a lot of times that comes with your life assignment. If you think about it like this, and another minister is the one who sort of put me on to this, Dr. Mike Murdoch. He said that Moses was assigned to the children of Israel. However, Aaron was assigned to Moses. And then the particular life assignment was to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt into the promised land, right? And Aaron was to provide specific spiritual direction, etc. And so once you understand who you are as an individual, what your gifts and talents are, you're going to get people who want to project you as a problem and not a solution. The reason why people do this is very simple is because if you are a solution to a specific problem, then they have to actually accept the solution. They've been going around the mountain, the metaphorical mountain. mountain, the wilderness wanderings, trying to find a solution. Here, God brings you in as a solution. Hey, here, I'm a solution. God is using me as a solution. And they decide to walk past you and say, no, you are not a solution. You are a problem. Okay. They're trying to change your destiny. They're trying to change your perception, right? They're trying to change not only your self perception, how you see yourself in the mirror, right? They're trying to distort the perception of yourself in the mirror, and they're trying to distort the perception socially of other people. If they can change the minds of people and say, "Hey, she's not the solution to the problem. I am," or we need to find another. Then what that does is withhold good from a person who needs it. Okay, let me think about it like this. Moses sends Joshua and Caleb and other men to go to the promised land, right, to spy it out, to see what is going on, okay, and to determine if they could advance, okay, uh, uh, the Philistines. And so Joseph and Caleb, after a time, returned and told Moses that the land is good, we can overtake it, okay, but the other people with them saw it as a different thing. They saw the people as being too big for them. They saw them as giants, meaning that they saw themselves as small to them, and they gave a bad report. They said, no, we cannot overtake it, okay. Well, this causes their bad report affects everybody else in the camp, so that now God says, okay, you're not going to go into the promised land right now. You're going to go around this mountain for 40 years, uh, wilderness wanderings. And so then that's going to kill off the naysayers and anyone else who gave a bad report. And that also meant generationally as well. And so um, what they did was that that bad report not only gave a bad perception of themselves that we cannot overtake it, but it also gave a bad perception of the promised land itself. That the inhabitants of the land, um, according to Joshua and Caleb, be overtaken. They saw something else. They saw that we can overtake them, that the land is ours. We might as well advance. That's what they saw. They saw the vision. They saw the vision of the promised land. But the naysayers, the ones who gave the bad report, didn't see the vision of the promised land. So that's interesting that they didn't see it as. I have to wonder, what did they see? What did they think they were doing while they were walking to the promised land? Did they not expect to go in? And that's I have to think about it, because if we're doing all this walking, eventually I want to get somewhere and sit down and rest. But I want to be careful that I don't get somewhere and sit down and settle. So what that means is that they were wanting to settle in a place that they were not supposed to be, and they were kind of like in between, because they were in between um, Egypt and the promised land, even though there were many, 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 many miles away from Egypt, but they were kind of like in between in terms of their mindset. They wanted to stay in Egypt because they understood Egypt. Egypt was predictable, even though they were beaten and mistreated, but but it was predictable. However, the promised land is unknown, even if they are being guided by the Lord through Moses, but it's unknown. And so God is saying that the promised land is a solution to your Egypt mindset. That you don't have to live in a country that tolerates you and people that mistreat you. That I'm giving you your own land and you can live however way you please in terms of peace, right? And so they saw the promised land strangely enough, as a problem, and they saw Egypt as a solution. When God is telling them, no, the promised land is a solution, Egypt is a problem. So then you have to look at your many of the decisions that you're making and determine whether or not you are seeing it correctly, you are seeing it appropriately. Because anything that is wearing you down and tearing you apart and hurting you, that is not the promises of God. That is a problem. And God has a solution to the problem, but you have to be willing to hear what it is through whomever God is using, right? But if you But if you are a hater, you're going to see everything that should be a solution as a problem and everything that should be a problem as a solution. And so haters frame you as a problem and not as a solution when they are misinterpreting um, the differences between problem and solution. So this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Haters frame you as a problem and not as a solution. Visit reginawhitefavorites.com for more tips. Thank you very much for listening. Hey, this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. And so the discussion centers on mocking. So haters mock you and tend to be emotionally abusive. Um, Mock is a very strong word, but it is an appropriate word. How people mock you when you're trying to go after something, and you have to think about what it is you're trying to do, right? Um, so if you're trying to be sort of like the next best singer, right, artist or something like that, or the next best rapper, okay, you're gonna have people who roll with you um, until you kind of get to where you want to get to. They may be a little quiet. Sometimes they say stuff under their breath, things like that. But for the most part, they try to be quiet because they want something that you got, right? But then you have some bold people um, who tend to look at what's going on with you and mock you. And they can also be emotionally abusive. These are people, when you're having a conversation, they kind of laugh a little bit. They try to get everybody in on the laughter, right? It has the same effect as pointing at you and laughing, right? And I wonder sometimes about this, about the emotionally abusive aspect of it and how it ties into mockery, but that is emotionally abusive because then that same person will turn around when you guys are alone, try to befriend you, try to be on your side. Not completely, right? Because they're still a hater, but they will uh, oftentimes gaslight you, right? They'll say, well, why are you so mad? You can't take a joke, right? That type of thing. But then when everybody has left the house, they'll sneak into your room and say, "Are you okay? He was laughing at you. I don't really think I said anything wrong, but it seemed like everybody else was laughing at you." But they were the people who actually initiated the whole mockery incident. But somehow, when everybody is gone, they they present themselves as a person who was kind of like a victim in a situation. I really wasn't trying to. I just said something, and I thought it was kind of funny, and so everybody started like really, really laughing. And I didn't really want to tell nobody not to laugh. They're my guests in the house. I want them to feel comfortable. But they're the ones who really took it too far. I really wasn't trying to be like that, because I like you. I like you being here and everything. I want you to come back and visit and stuff. And so I'm just telling you, I just want to come in here and tell you and see if you are all right, because I really wasn't trying to be funny. I wasn't trying to be funny. I just thought I said something funny, and it seemed like everybody else just kind of went too far with it. So I just want to let you know that I really wasn't trying to be mean or something like that. So you you will accept that person's apology because it's so long-winded that it sounds like they are repentant in their heart. But then the very next encounter, some sort of event like a Christmas event or Easter event or something like that, and everyone has come to the house, they will repeat the pattern. They will, and that's the emotionally abusive part of it. The linking it from mockery to emotionally abusive. The mockery is starting it out. They are the initiators of the mockery in some form or fashion, right? And the emotionally abusive aspect is sort of like the lying that they do when they come back and say, or when they give off the perception that they're changing, or that they changed, and they didn't mean to do what they did, and that low key you took it too wrong, right? You took it too personal, and so even though you think it's resolved, it's not truly resolved, and that they're going to do it again. And that's haters mock you and tend to be emotionally abusive. That's what they are attempting to do. They need the rise that comes. It's two types of rises. They need the rise that comes with um, initiating the mocking, uh, picking up. We call it picking on you, right? Initiate calling attention to something you got on, and then building on top of that. Girl, what you got on? You wearing those socks again? You wearing that dress again? I thought you just uh, the last time uh, you don't want to buy anything new. I can go buy you something new. Anything to initiate the mocking, because the goal is to get the attention on you. People who are haters don't want the attention on themselves, even in a very innocent situation. Innocent as people have come over for Thanksgiving to eat Thanksgiving. That's a extremely innocent situation. It does not need a boxing ring. It does not need shouting. It does not need accusatory language. We're over here to eat. That's it. We're here to visit, talk, eat, and then we go home. So even in innocent situations, haters don't want the spotlight on them. And the irony is, it's their house. Why would you invite people over knowing that you don't want the spotlight on you? It doesn't make any sense, right? But I think it goes back to the two rises, that they like the rise in initiating the mockery of some sort of you, and looking at the faces of people who respond. And then after that, those people now join in the mockery. Okay, that's it. That's that, right? Call that A. Okay, the B part is when everyone has left, everything has got died down, and they might feel a little bit of guilt while they're sitting in a room somewhere, or if you've left the house and they're at the house by themselves, they decide to call you. Okay, the rise comes in when they try to make you feel like you were the one who took it too personally, and that they really wasn't trying to be funny or something like that. And then when you accept their apology, they get a rise there. So it's two sets of rises. And then when they repeat the pattern again with another incident, and it's always when it's within a group, when within a group, then it's not the only time, but at least that time, it's more effective then, because then they feel supported in their mockery of you, and they want support. They want to be accepted. They want to people to look at them and see them as an expert. See, you are an expert of her. She knows she doesn't need to wear those socks anymore, or wear that dress, or what. They want to be the person. Strangely enough, they don't want the spotlight on them, but when there is support of their mockery, they want to be supported, which returns the spotlight on them. It's the strangest dynamic. It's the strangest dynamic, but they mock you and tend to be emotionally abusive. Now, can they do this? when it's just you and the other person, yeah, of course. What the mockery might come in the form of them making faces, or they might decide in mid conversation to get up and walk out. Right here it is, you're trying to explain something, and all of a sudden they get up and walk out, and then they leave you to yourself for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. You think they're going to come right back. So then that's emotionally abusive, because then you get quiet because you are passive aggressive about the situation. Okay, and you think, okay, why are you doing this? I was just talking. And it's the type of situation that you can't really speak up. It could be, um, the relationship is usually between a mother and daughter. My mom used to do that. That's how I know. And so I just learned, let her guide the conversation, whatever she wants to say. But anytime it looks like I wanted to initiate a thought or bring about some new understanding about something, she get up and walk out, go into the closet, pretend she's trying to find something, or pretend that the phone ring and she had to answer the phone. Leave me there in the living room, because I'm thinking that she's actually going to come back. Leave me there in the living room, and I'm thinking, that I'll just return to the conversation. When in reality, she done changed the environment of the home to the point that we can't return to the conversation. We can't move forward in that thought, in that understanding. And that's what they do. And you have to make a decision about how you're going to continue to deal with that person, even if it's a family member, even if it's a mother. Because if you know that that person is kind of mocking you and being emotionally abusive and playing you and pitting people against you, you cannot engage that person in conversation. Everything you do has to be very short. You can't be on the phone with that person long enough. You can't visit too long. You can't spend the night. You can't spend the weekend, because you're going to leave there very anxiety ridden, angry, upset, don't know why, emotionally abused, and it's going to take almost a week to 2 weeks to recover from the situation. So this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Haters mock you and tend to be emotionally abusive. Visit ReginaWhiteFavors.com for more tips. Thank you very much for listening. Right. So this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. And the discussion is about time. Haters waste time, and they purposely waste your time. And I've been sort of saying this throughout the rest of the individual presentations. But haters, when they waste time, they don't manage their own time. When they waste your time, they don't care about what you got going on, right? Everything takes time. Everything takes preparation, strategy, mentorship, instruction, direction. When you come across someone who has knowledge about something, don't waste their time. Don't waste their time, because you don't know when you are going to have access to that person again. If you are dealing with someone who has a certain level of knowledge concerning an issue that you want to address in your profession, right? You don't waste their time. You don't say, okay, I got all the time in the world to talk to them. No, you don't. Because they may be mentors to other people, and those people get time. And they have other things that they're doing, and that gets time. And then they have family time, they have kids' time. And so, when you come across a person who is interested in wasting your time, and you know it, because pay attention to how they manage their time. Just pay attention. The person who hates you, they are always everywhere and nowhere at the same time. They're like the hamster on the hamster's wheel. They're running and running and running, but they're not accomplishing anything. These are the types of people who might start something but won't finish it. They complain about the middle, right? The middle that requires endurance. And there's an endurance factor to anything you're trying to do. You set the goal, you endure the goal, you complete the goal, and then you start the new goal. Okay? You start a new goal. But if you're the type of person who is very good at accomplishing tasks, you said endure, complete, they're going to be jealous of that. They're going to think it might come as this perception of you is okay, you think you're better than me. You think you're smart. You think you're this. You think you're that. You know, I can do this. I'm smart too. It reminds me of the Godfather, Fredo, uh, being upset that he had to submit to the authority of his brother. And he was sitting in the chair and saying, you know, I'm smart too. Give me something to do that, right? You're my little brother, right? And what he was basically saying when he got the opportunity to lead, he did not lead. He was all the way in Las Vegas, I think. He didn't have nobody on his neck. He could just lead, right? He could do what he needed to do to lead. But when he got the opportunity to lead, he didn't lead. He came up under the feet of who was supposed to be people that he was supposed to lead over, meaning that the family wanted their enemies, in a sense, to be up under their feet. Well, they ended up having his neck under their feet, right? And uh, given the opportunity, he didn't make good on the opportunity. Don Corleone was the one who initiated the opportunity to take over the family business. He sustained that in taking over the family business and leading, and of course, he died doing that very thing, right? Okay, haters waste time. So when you think about Fredo, who did he hate over there? Who was he jealous of over there, so that he didn't make good use of his time? Was it that he hated his brother, even though his brother was in another city and state, and even though he was in Las Vegas, that his hate could have been so strong for his younger brother that he decided not to do anything in terms of leading, right? Haters waste time. They purposely waste your time, meaning that by the time the younger brother comes to Las Vegas and he needs a report of what's going on, he realizes that Fredo hadn't accomplished the thing. Instead, he became like the people that he was supposed to be leading. And later, Don finds out that Fredo has betrayed him and the family, right? And so, which sets him back, not only Fredo, but sets the family back, sets back the leader. So haters waste time because of maybe they don't like the fact that you are in a leadership position. Haters waste time and haters waste your time could be two different things. Haters waste time, they don't manage their own lives, and anyone who comes into their lives who looks like what they were supposed to become, they tend to try to waste the time of that person, right? And then haters waste your time. That means that your time could be, you could be the leader in the situation. And instead of making sure everything is run well on their end, they decide to um, not attend to something, whatever the something is. It could be finances, it could be, um, the production schedule, it could be accounting. They decide they purposely do not attend to something. See, like I said, these are two different types of haters. One is a hater. He has no ambition, even though he says he has ambition. He has no ambition. Or it's like the person who says they are they have a dream. Okay, they want to do this X amount of things, but they won't do anything towards trying to achieve the dream. They won't even take the first step. The first step could easily be taking a business class. They won't take the business class. Or they'll say that the business class is during a time that they're at work. and they can't take that class, right? Whereas but the irony is that many business classes are available online. You can take them on the on the weekends. You can take them at night. The community college system has made it so much more convenient for people to take classes that you can be able to do it. Okay, so then they take the class and then they say, okay, it's a lot of work. And so the professor, he needs to understand that I work full time. I can't be doing all of this homework and everything like that. Why can't he this, that, right? But that's college. It's a college course. You're going to have work. So they'll waste time. And the dreamer aspect of it is the best example of it, because you have dreamers and you have doers. And so you have a person, and both of them could be dreamers. It's just that one is actually doing something, putting forth effort. So that's the hater that wastes time. The hater that wastes your time is if you decided to hire that person as your assistant, or just at your company, right? Okay, it's your company. And so you have assigned them a task. It's not that hard of a task, but you have assigned them a task, and they decide to waste time to keep from accomplishing the task. They're not task oriented people. They could be on a very high level of procrastination, but they are fueled by hate. They hate the fact that you are in the position to give them a job and pay them money. And so the response, the solution or response will be to waste your time. So then when you're wasting time, your time, you are affecting your money, or that person is affecting your money. They were supposed to call a distributor and set the appointment. Then you go and meet the distributor, and the company has no schedule of you arriving. So now you're both embarrassed, right? The company is embarrassed. It's a number of things that you can use to understand this, but the goal is to the wasting your time is always going to be to set you back some kind of way. That they hate you so badly that they want to set you back and keep you from accomplishing, because they're not people who accomplish anything. That's what that means. Haters waste their time. They're not people who accomplish. And when you're choosing people to take over any role or assign any role to, make sure they are people who accomplish things. It could be as simple as writing a book. It could be as simple as going to work, finishing orientation, finishing their scheduled shift, um, finishing a course, finishing any task that they set to start, to endure, and complete. Okay, so this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Haters waste time, and they purposely waste your time. Visit reginawhitefavors.com for more tips and resources. Uh, Thank you very much for listening. All right, this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Uh, and so this discussion is about vision, really. I've used um, mockery in a previous presentation, but this is really in reference to vision. So haters mock your vision and or the vision of God for your life. Okay, this is kind of like an interesting presentation, because you do have to know on some level what vision God has for you, right? A lot of times you'll be guided by an image. Sometimes you are guided by an image of what you're going to become. Okay. It just depends on what you're doing. If you want to open up a school, that's a vision of opening up a school. Okay. But the vision of God for your life could be that even though you open up the school, it's going to address a certain type of need in that area, or based upon your gifts and talents. Like my talent is writing, my gift is teaching. Okay, based upon that gift and talent, God might train you in one environment, but move everything that you learn to another environment, right? And that's the vision of God for your life. It just depends on what it is that you've heard from God, if you've heard from God. But a lot of times you'll get practice on it. You'll just feel compelled to a certain demographic or to a certain neighborhood or to a certain field or something like that. You feel like you are called to serve, right? You see this a lot of times in advocacy work and philanthropic work, and you just say, okay, yeah, they have a heart to like help people and all that kind of stuff. So it's obvious. And then they go to college for it and things like that. And so you got some people who just like advocacy work, but they don't necessarily, sometimes they're not necessarily called. They just want to work in that field. And then you got some people who had the vision of the Red Cross or Salvation Army or Habitat for Humanity. They had that vision. And then you add God to the mix, and it is explosive, right? It is explosive in a good way that you see Habitat for Humanity in multiple cities, states, countries, right? Red Cross, multiple cities, states, countries, Salvation Army, multiple cities, states, and countries. So whoever got that vision way back then, hundreds of years ago, you see that vision manifested. That lets you know that that was actually a vision of God. Because you can't be really successful at that magnitude and at that global level without God's divine instruction. There's no way around it. Okay. Um, but when you have your own vision for something, it could be it could be on a very simple level. You want to open up a business. You want to open up a business. You want to open up a company or start a company, become an entrepreneur or something like that. That's really a very, very basic level. Okay. And you need a vision statement for the company. Then you need mission statement. You need core value statement. You need any other type of statement, um, marketing and promotion statements, things like that, right? To manage the hierarchy of the company as well as the vision of the company, the purpose, goals, etc. Okay, but if you're Starbucks, for example, you're not going to have a vision for just one uh, shop. You're going to have a vision for multiple shops, different neighborhoods, which will then turn into multiple cities and states, and then move into global dominance. Okay, that's vision. That's a larger vision on top of the original vision that you have. Okay, and then there's, of course, the vision of God for your life. So anytime you are going after something that is going to be of service to the Lord, that's going to be a higher vision than anything that you can accomplish on your own. So haters tend to mock your vision, okay, the thing that you want to do, and the thing that you want to do that's actually in preparation for the vision of God for your life. And this is not necessarily a vision that is given to everybody. The It's usually a person who's going to bring generational change to something. This is a problem that's been going on for so many years, generations, etc. And now you step in, you were birthed in whatever generation, and now you are at an age where you can go forth in that vision. Okay. Regardless, vision requires you to prepare. There's no way around that. Where they mock you is in the preparation stage. That's where they mock you because you haven't accomplished anything, and you're sort of halt between what you started and how you started and where you were trying to get to. And so where you the in between is the preparation. Preparation can be a few months, it can be a year, 2 year, five, it can be multi years, it can be double digit years. But that's where they tend to mock you. That's where they're trying to get you off the path. Because then, if you decide to get off the path and not do it, then they have now affected the vision of God for your life. The vision of God is never going to stop. They can hinder it. An enemy, a hater, can hinder it. They can get in the way. They can throw obstacles. They can mess with you. They can get you all turned around, things like that. But whatever God has for you is going to go forth. Now, you could be damaged and bruised because you gave in too much to their uh, protestations. Every time they had a problem, right, you had to go and solve it. Okay, then that's getting off the path of preparation, because when you get distracted, you lose time. You lose time. Now, how much time you lose, it just depends. But when you get distracted, you lose time. And so when you know that you have something, it's something that you're working on, and you see the winner aspect of it, or you can see it manifested, like you got the vision of it, you need to keep your mouth shut. Don't talk, don't tell anybody what you're doing. Just tell everybody that you're going to work or whatever, and you go into isolation. You don't say anything about it, because as much as you are strong and can stand up for yourself and set boundaries, there is an enemy. There is a hater who can get you so turned around that you can find yourself in prison, in jail, in a mental health facility. They will provoke you to anger. There's a presentation on that too. They will provoke you to anger. And you'll find yourself blowing up at that person. And you're not necessarily blowing up that person, you're blowing up at their hate. You're blowing up at their rejection. Everybody on some level wants to be accepted. And when they are rejected by someone uh, because of what they're trying to accomplish in life, it messes with them. It messes with them every day. And so haters mock your vision. That's within the preparation stage. That's where they are actually mocking you. When it comes to the vision of God for your life, they don't necessarily have to be people who are atheists or agnostic or not saved or not born again. They don't necessarily have to be that. They can be born again people. They can be born again Christians. They can be agnostic. They can be atheists. They can be whoever they choose by free will to be. And they can still want to mock the vision of God. And what that means, there's an evil demonic influence there, because then it's the demons and Satan and everybody else who hates God. And so they don't want what God is trying to do in your life to go forth, because if it goes forth, again, you could be the generational change. You could be the one that's going to bring change on the earth. That means if it's changed, a lot of times that goes back to truth. And people love to reject truth because it actually requires change. So haters mock your vision. They come at you during the preparation stage because they're trying to keep you from getting to completion, whatever completion looks like. If you're trying to get a business or have a business, you know you need certain licenses, right? You know you need help from an attorney, things like that. Somewhere they'll get in the way of that. Okay? When it comes to the vision of God, it's something that's a generational change that you're going to bring to the earth. It could be marriage restoration, right, and recovery. It could be um, parents and children coming back together, right? Anything where parent is estranged or something like that from a child is some sort of major issue type thing that is larger than life, that requires the vision of God to have an impact on the earth. That's a completely different thing. That's more divine and spiritually inclined. So, overcoming hate setback series, haters mock your vision and or the vision of God for your life. Visit reginawhitefavors.com for tips. Thank you very much for listening. All right, this is overcoming hate setback series. And the discussion is about help. And there's, I think, another presentation on this. But haters do not help you. I place that in quotation marks because there is a help that you need on your journey, and then there's a help that people who hate you want to give you on your journey. And the help that they give you is not the kind of help that you actually need. Even if it could be insightful, could be instructive, you learn something or something like that. But the help that they give you really is going to hinder you. It's not help. uh, you hear them say, I just want to help you. Every time I try to help you, you don't want to accept my help or something like that. And so they try to create a victim narrative, like all I want to do is just help people. And every time I try to help them, here's what they do. Okay, now they have created the victim narrative, and so then you give in to them, uh, feeling like you you you're being too aggressive and not accepting their help. I mean, and then you start talking like them. You start, well, she did say that she want to help me. And I mean, I do need help, and so she just trying to help. So I guess I'll go on ahead and accept her help. But they do not help you when you think about help. Help comes from an informed point of view, right? It comes with a skill set. It comes with direction, instruction, wisdom, mentoring. Help is just not help in terms of helping someone with groceries up the stairs, or helping someone wash the dishes, or helping someone sweep the floor or make the bed. All of that is helpful. It's definitely helpful, but that is not the help that is needed on your journey, right? The help that you need could be a person who is an accountant who has gone to school for accounting, and they offer some tips and strategies on how to do a certain financial statement specific to your industry or specific to your field. That's help. That's help, because then they're going to save you some time. They may even You may even contract them and pay them a consulting fee for them to help you work with that financial statement. That's help. Okay, if a person uh, needs guidance on how to write a paper and they didn't get a lot of guidance on writing a paper or showing all their work for a math problem, then you're going to have to kind of set yourself back to help them. They need a specific type of, and if you give them the strategies for how to work that problem and solve that problem, and show them how to apply it to the next problem, then you've helped them. Okay. But if I had a situation when I was in the ninth grade, I think, and I had to take Spanish. All of us have to take some kind of language, and I tell this story in other video lessons and things like that. And I had to take the Spanish class, and it was a mix of students in terms of aptitude. I think it was predominantly black school, but it was a mix in terms of aptitude and capacity. Okay, the teacher was Spanish. He spoke Spanish. He was Latino, right? And we didn't have that language at that time. We called them Hispanic, okay? And instead of teaching Spanish, he sat at the front of the class. Um, the light was kind of dim in that room, okay? So we only had the light from the windows. And he sat in that class, and he would tell us um, to get the books out of the locker. Okay, we got the books out of the locker, the in-class locker or shelf or whatever, and he would tell us the page to go to, the problem set to do, and then he said if we needed to know the answers, to look at the back of the book. Okay, and he never taught a lick of Spanish. He never got up from that seat. He never put anything on the board. He never talked the whole time. The whole time he sat there without teaching. He didn't help us, right? The other students who maybe had a capacity, they did something on their own initiation. So they were more inclined to care about learning Spanish. And it could have been because they were doing something, maybe wanting to go out of the country to a Spanish speaking country. I don't know. But their capacity was different. It didn't mean that all of us couldn't learn Spanish. It was just an experience that was weird. You're supposed to be teaching us, but you're not teaching us, and you want us to learn this. There are some aspects of the course, of the topic, you're still going to have to teach. There's no way around that, right? And then there's some that we have to initiate and be proactive about, etc. Okay. Well, I that class left a bad taste in my mouth. I never forget it. Um, and then later in the 10th grade at another high school, there was a teacher, a geometry teacher. She actually taught. She didn't tell us to go get the books out of the locker, do a problem set, and look at the back of the book. She actually got up to the board. She challenged us. She talked us through it. She taught from the board. We had to do. We actually were required to improve. It didn't have to necessarily be. We didn't necessarily have to leave with an A in the class, but we had to improve, right? Okay. Well, haters do not help you. It goes back to uh, a a refusal um, to help you. Now, in the case of the Spanish teacher, I wonder if that teacher even knew Spanish. Because I would think if you know something, you want to speak it, you want to talk about it, you want to do it, especially if you are teaching Spanish, right? And you love Spanish and you want to talk Spanish. Even if you hated Spanish, you still want to talk it. So then, when I think about that situation, I wonder if he knew anything, if he knew Spanish at all. He might not have been born in a Spanish speaking country. He might have been born in America and he never learned how to speak Spanish. And you have that, right? You have many kids now who come from um, Latino backgrounds who do not necessarily learn Spanish, right? So then they do not help you could be something that they're trying to do on purpose, and it could be something that they just don't know how to help you, or they don't have the knowledge base to help you, so therefore they don't help you. If you know that you don't have it, don't pretend that you have it. If you know that you don't have the skill set, the knowledge base, the wisdom, the instruction, the mentoring, the direction or guidance, but you present yourself as a person who does, you're lying. You're actually lying to the person who actually needs help. You're saying to the person, I'm here to help you, but you don't even possess the requisite skills and knowledge to help the person, so they don't help you. What they do is they give you a general view of whatever topic, whatever discipline, and the longer they talk about it, the more it seems like they know what they're talking about, but they may be just confused on how to get you to understand, when in reality they don't know what they're talking about. They've been lying the whole time about their abilities, and they don't know what they're talking about. And the hater aspect of it is they could just come clean and say, I don't know, but I can find a person who does. But they want to um, drown you with non discipline. No, they want to drown you with knowledge that doesn't apply to the thing that you need help with or something. They want to get you all turned around um, with knowledge of something, but it doesn't apply to the thing that you're trying to accomplish. So they don't help you. They hate the fact that you are doing something doing something with your life, trying to pull together this business, trying to pull together this dream, doing this or whatever. And what they try to do is they try to step in and become an expert. They try to tell you, okay, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Every time you're not doing this, this is why you're failing, whatever. But if you really sat down with a coffee, with 2 cups of coffee, and let them talk about what they are supposed to know, you will see that they know nothing. So haters do not help you is essentially they don't help you with the knowledge that you need to get to where you need to go, but they present themselves as people with knowledge, with skill, with understanding, with direction, with mentoring. And the hating aspect of it is that they're trying to get you off track. All right, so this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Haters do not help you. Visit reginawhitefavors.com for more tips. Um, Thank you very much for listening. All right, so this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series, and the topic today is haters do not want your help. Now, remember from the introduction to the series, I referenced a YouTube channel, Big Ward, the genius, and how he made a comment concerning a friend who took over a role that a white man led for about 10 years, and his friend is black woman, and she took over the role, and all of the co-workers served that man for 10 years, right? That white man for 10 years. But once she took over the role, all of a sudden they decided to quit. And um, and she was having a conversation with her friend, who is the YouTube channel owner, and said that all I want to do is help and get you to the next place. And somewhere in the middle of his discussion, his YouTube video discussion, he makes this assessment. He makes this conclusion. Haters don't want your help. So I will leave a link in the description box so you can access that video. But this statement here, and again, as I noted in the introduction, I'm quite sure um, he did not invent this statement. However, I felt that it was so significant to my own journey with dealing with people who sort of reject you, hate you, or tend to be jealous of you. I thought it, sort of fitting to credit him. So, haters do not want your help, and help is in quotation marks. The help that is in quotation marks really does refer to advancing you, because that was the basis of his discussion, and that's usually the basis of your your life, your relationships with people who don't want your help. You have something, as I've always noted, you have something that the other person needs, and the other person has something that you need. And when a person decides to withdraw or withhold uh, anything that could be of good to you, that could be knowledge, wisdom, understanding, instruction, some direction, etc. When they decide to withhold anything that is of good for you, that hinders your path. It doesn't stop your path completely, because whatever God has for you is going to be for you. Um, but it does bring a halt. It does influence your path. It does influence you. Your help then is the same thing when you're trying to help somebody. You may have access to resources. You may have financial acumen. You may be the door that they need to walk through to get to where they need to get to on the other side. You may be the person, you could be the generational person who's going to change things. You could be the person who decides to open up a business and help the homeless, right? You can do a number of things. And since I mentioned the homeless, there's been this kind of like ongoing trend of cities wanting to resolve the homelessness problem because it is affecting businesses. Businesses are leaving the city, which means economic dollars, financial dollars are leaving the city. And these are hotels, these are major businesses, right? Okay. Well, there's this ongoing trend with homeless people who do not want to go into the shelter. Uh, they say that there are too many rules, or they feel that it's dangerous. So they would rather stay outside in the elements and um, risk some violence towards them than to go inside. Now, I've stayed in the shelters before. I had a downtime in my life uh, during the financial recession, so I had to go in. I had to live with family, and then there were issues with family, and so then I had to go back and forth. So I've had my own journey, and I never supported living outside because I'm the kind of person. I have to shower every day. I have to be able to do what I need to do as a woman. But when you say you don't want the help of the shelter has beds. The shelter has an inside facility. The shelter has food. The shelter has air conditioning or heater, right? The shelter has clothes for you. The shelter has yes, the shelter does have a curfew, but that's also for your protection. The shelter has a number of access to resources, so telephone numbers you can call. The shelter allows for you to receive mail there. Now, most shelters require you to take everything with you, so if you've gathered a lot of stuff over the years, right, it's going to be hard for you to go into a shelter because you can't bring all that stuff into the shelter. But for a time being, if you set a goal to go in, stay in, if they permit for 3 months, get access to resources, things like that, maybe put your name on a housing list. No, it's not as easy as I just listed off, but it's help. And haters don't want your help. So the haters today who are homeless don't want the help of the homeless shelter. They don't want the help of the local government now buying and purchasing motel properties so that they could house homeless people, namely the migrants, but homeless people in general. They don't want that. And they have gone on camera and said they would rather sleep outside. So haters don't want you. So it's something about the system, and you don't get to a point in your life where you are at the age you are and homeless, hating the system from that age. You hated the system way before that, and the system could have been the orphanage. The system could have been you having to move from home to home. The system could have been dealing with abusive parents. So you have had some kind of hate, or hate was projected onto you that um, um, you have a problem with the system. That's not the only example. You could think about a family member who always sort of has his hand out for help, um, and it's usually finances, right? Can you give me $20 here, $40 or something like that? But when you want to sit down and impart some wisdom in that person, they don't want to listen. They don't want that help. They want the money help, but they don't want the wisdom help. Because if you're having to ask me every week for $20, $25, $30, $40, or money for partly on your rent, okay, you're missing a step in your financial development, in your financial understanding. You're missing an understanding of something. You have a gap, and I always tell people to conduct a gap analysis. That's a business term, and it's the difference between what is and what should be. If you are always having to ask money from people, then you are struggling to manage your own money, what you get every month, right? Or what you get every week or 2 weeks from your job. If you don't have a job, then that's your gap. That's your what is. What should be is you need to know how to manage your money. You need to keep a job, a sustainable job that's going to pay you every week or every 2 weeks, right? You need to do all that you can to be an adult. That's the what should be. But they don't want that help. I've had people ask me for money, and I didn't catch it early enough. And these were family members and friends, and I've had them to ask me for money, and but when I wanted to talk about something that I learned from, say, a conference I went to, or a book I read, or someone told me something that had an impact on my life, they get up and leave the room. They won't call you. Um, they try to change the conversation quickly. They do all that they can to not receive that help. That is the strangest thing. I never thought about it until now. They do everything that they can not to receive that actual help. But they will continue to come and, um, even if they're not asking you for money, they could waste your time. Okay, they can always have you going to different places, and here it is, you can't get anything done, and they may be interrupting you as you're trying to write a book or trying to get something done with your business. And then when you try to impart in them something of value, they don't want that help. So keep in mind, think about it like this: they're going to do all that they can to keep from receiving your help. They'll leave the room. They won't call you. They'll create an argument. They will provoke you to anger. They will mock you. They will do all that they can. And it could be a fear of moving forward. But but it's really, to me, a fear of responsibility. Because once you tell them something that is going to have an impact and require them to do something, then they now have to take responsibility for that knowledge. So it's like a kid, a toddler. You're trying to talk to the toddler, and the toddler puts his hands on his ears and says, and basically suggests he doesn't want to listen. That's who they are at their core. They're toddlers. Because if you tell the toddler to go pick up your toys and put them in the box, and the toddler falls out on the floor and cries, then that is the beginning of a person's issue with problem solving. And so there's a problem going on in their life that needs to be resolved. You may be the solution in terms of imparting wisdom, but they have decided not to listen, and they have decided not to receive your help. And they could be jealous of the help, or they could just be, again, fearful that they would have to take responsibility. So, Overcoming Hate Setback Series, haters do not want your help. Visit reginawhitefavors.com for more tips. Thank you very much for listening. All right, so this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series, and the title is Haters Reject You Out of Their Hate. And I don't, this may be a race-based issue. This may be a community-based issue. This may be a friendship issue. It could be a number of issues. But if you look at the race-based issue, because this is usually something that might be more attributable to race, haters reject you out of their hate. Okay, the hate that they have for you um, could be, if we're looking at race, the advantages that you bring to an organization. Um, I think about it like this, and then this could be kind of general. I think about it like this. Here it is. You've been at the company for 25 years. You've been a faithful employee. You've been doing everything that you were supposed to do and told to do. And you don't have a college degree or anything like that. And maybe you took courses. Maybe you maybe you did some professional development. Usually you don't. And then someone comes in somewhere in your 25th year, they have a college degree. Uh, they have improved their skills, right? But by the time they come into the 25 years, they come uh, with some ideas, some ideas. And they are working alongside you, and you both are trying to go for maybe a supervisor position or something like that. And instead of choosing you, and you've been at the company for 25 years, they choose the other person who's been there for 6 months, right? The reason why they do that is not so much that they don't value you. I believe they do that because you only did the minimum, and the job might require you to go above and beyond that. That it requires you to come up with ideas to move the company forward. That you always have to remember that you work for a brand, and so the brand has to move forward and continue to increase in dollars and make money for the investors, right? And if you're not contributing in that kind of way, you're just the type of person who's just going to continue to push buttons, clock in, do your work, clock out, and that's it. Two, you may not have built relationships with other employees. The other person coming in is much more, not necessarily nice, but um, much more of a person who can socialize, and it's a lot of politics in it, but socialize and sort of talk to people, etc. Right? So now the hater in you is going to reject that new person out of your hate. Okay, uh, and it's not always that you hate the new person. It could be that your hate is really projected onto the job. You were waiting for the job to see you, to perceive you that you are a good worker. uh, you were waiting for the maybe like the spotlight. Hey, come see me. I'm really good. I want to move up, but you never spoke up. You never spoke up. You never did anything. You never applied for a supervisor job when the job became available. There were that supervisor job that the person just got after being there for 6 months is likely not the only supervisor job or position to move you out of where you are into somewhere else. You never did anything. For 25 years, you came to work. You were loyal. For 25 years, you came to work. You did what you were supposed to do, never being late, clocked in, clocked out, got your paycheck, but that's all you did. You didn't do much more than that. And so the hate that you feel towards the person is really the hate that you feel towards yourself, that you didn't do much more than what you needed to do to get somewhere else. You could say the same thing about the relationship, the the racist relationships between black and white people. You have white people um, who have um, been serving this country, every way they have, working either at a company or job or something like that. And then you have this black person who comes in and with the education, with some skills, who comes in and now is going to become the boss of those people. Okay, of really everybody else, and you immediately project your hate onto the black person because uh, that may be the most convenient way to explain why you haven't advanced in life. There's something that you should have done 5, 10 years back that instead of doing it, you got distracted. You decided that you wanted to invest more time in something else. And then it caught up with you 10, 15 years later when what you want to do matters, but it's sort of too late because now they got someone else. And that could be education. A lot of people are attacking college degrees, and you see this within the black community, black men hating on black women for going to college. And so what what they would do is affect their self-esteem and say, okay, yeah, you went to college, but you got all those student loans. Okay. uh, they'll say you did this, okay, but you don't have a man. Or they'll say you got that education, but you're going to be single for life if you're 35 or over, right? They do all these different things to mask the fact that they did not achieve anything, that they didn't do anything themselves. And so it's much easier to hate on that black woman, that black man hating on that black woman for the accomplishments, for the achievement, than to look at themselves, assess themselves, do a self reflection on themselves, and say, I didn't really accomplish. So, in other words, the hate is the hate towards their accomplishment, which is really, if they turn that finger around and point it to themselves, they're basically saying, I haven't accomplished the things. So she's showing me up, or she is a mirror to what I should have done. Exactly. There you go. She's a mirror to what I should have done. So instead of receiving from that person and talking to that person and asking the person, how did you do it? They decide to just hate. And so the hate could manifest as, you could be a person who has had a job for 25 years, and your partner could, the female partner could be a person who went to college, finished a degree, and has been working, making more money. You'll hate that person because she makes more money than you. Okay, you can't blame that person because she makes more money than you when you have the same opportunity to go to school to make more money. It's gonna be easy, the very first time you graduate from college, but it's a possibility. And so haters reject you out of their hate. They are rejecting the fact that whatever is going on with you, you look like a mirror to what they should have done. You look like a mirror. Had I not been set back um, during the financial recession, I would have been much more advanced. And the setback was created because I was out of order. It was a disobedience issue, and so fast forward, and that happened in 2000. Fast forward to 2006, I had to go through my correction process, and then the financial recession hit. I lost my job. I became homeless. I had a number of things, and everything got back on track around 2013 when I returned to teaching. And so, if I had not disobeyed in 2000, which led to correction, which led to homelessness, which led to everything shutting down around me, I likely would have been today an assistant dean or associate dean, maybe an executive dean. And I realized that when I was in my dean's office, we were just having a regular conversation, and I thought she was younger than I was. And but we turned out we went to the same high school. She graduated a year or so before me. Uh, she did computers in college. I also did, but I decided to transfer, change my major into English. She did, I think, master's degree in English. She was literally about a year older than I was, or younger. I can't remember now. And I sat across from her while she was talking, and the revelation came to me that she looks like what I was supposed to become. That if I had followed the path, now she had a hard life herself. She had recently gone through cancer, and maybe 2 years in or something like that, and she is in remission. Uh, she had her own hard life. But when I sat across from her, it just hit me. It just hit me that she looked like what I was supposed to become, or on the track towards becoming. And I wasn't jealous of it. I promise you, I wasn't jealous or nothing like that. It just kind of hit me because it's the truth of the thing. So a lot of times when people reject you out of their hate, it's because you look, because you look, you you represent a mirror to them of what they were supposed to become. And instead of self assessing and self correcting and accepting the revelation of that, they decide to just hate you and reject you and don't don't have anything to do with you, because the longer that they don't hear the solution, the more they don't have to become responsible for it. So that's Overcoming Hate Setback Series in a kind of mulberry bush way. Haters reject you out of their hate. Visit reginawhitefavorites.com for more tips. Thank you very much for listening. Hey, this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. The title is Haters Who Hate You Must Bear Their Own Burdens of Hate, Not You. So what that essentially means is that the hate that a person feels for you or has directed towards you, you honestly just don't have the time. You don't have the time to bear that burden. They have hate in their heart and they are trying to get rid of it. And they're not going to sit down and try to figure out why they hate something or hate a person. That's too much of an emotional process, and it requires emotional regulation, meaning no cussing, no fighting, no violence, or something like that. The only way that people know how to handle situations is with violence. It's with yelling, with cussing, with hitting, with anything that can continue to project the hate onto somebody else, because they can't beat themselves up. They can't take their fist and uh, punch themselves in the eye. They can't take the fist and hit themselves upside the nose. So it's much easier to bring that fist to your face. Okay, it's much easier to bring that fist to your face, and so then they get the release, which in which in reality they are releasing that hate onto you. So then they come back like a typical abuser and apologize and say, I'm sorry and I won't do it again and please forgive me. Okay, things go well for a little bit because you forgive them. Okay, they get another release there. Okay, and then something happens again and then they hit you again. And this can be in a domestic violence situation, a romantic relationship. It can be friendship. It can be parent relationship. It can be any type of relationship where there's um, closeness, right? And so then they repeat the pattern, wash, rinse, and repeat. They repeat the pattern again, and then you have to forgive them all over again. Then it continues to happen until you catch it, until you catch the pattern of them doing it. And you'll know when you caught it because you say, every time I turn around, he's always upset. Every time I mention this, or every time he mentions this, or whatever, he's always upset. He gets upset. He starts flailing his arms. He starts yelling and crying and falling out on the floor. I'm tired of dealing with him like this. I'm tired of this because every time he does this, he sort of hits me, or or he comes at me. He gets in my face, and then I have to back up, and I have to tell him don't hit me and all that kind of stuff. And then somehow we end up on the floor, and we're fighting. And I don't know. I just don't even know how it all happened. But I know one thing. I sure am tired of this. I can't do this anymore. When you say that, that's when you're saying that you now want to transfer the burden, that you don't want to wear the burden of their hate of you or of life or of someone else. You don't want to wear that burden anymore, because now not only do you have to wear or bear the burdens of your own life. You are an adult. You have a life that you have to carry out. You have bills that you have to pay. You got to take care of yourself as an adult. You already have enough life burden on you that you really can't afford to take on another person's burden. But when that happens, that can be a financial burden, right? The person always asking you for money. That could be a shelter burden. The person all of a sudden shows up at your door and say, "Hey, I need to move in." That could be a kid's burden, not in a negative way, but having to raise kids, right? Okay, that could be a mate, a romantic relationship burden, having to deal with your mate cheating or having to deal with your mate not keeping a job or something like. Okay, you already have regular life burdens that you have to take care of and manage and help to move along and advance, etc. The person over here who continues to fall out on the floor like a toddler and won't solve his or her problems, okay, that's going to become an even greater burden to you, because it's going to affect your mental health, it's going to affect your physical health, your financial health, your relationship health that you have with someone else. It's going to affect all areas of your life. And as a solution to the problem, you're going to have to set boundaries. I remember a time there was a person who wanted to get money from me every time I got my school money, and I ran my big mouth talking about how much money I got in school money. And so the person, every time she knew that I was going to get a check, um, she already had her hand out. Okay. And again, I have to take full responsibility for it, because I ran my mouth and I offered, or I let her ask and then I offered. Okay. Well, I realized I was giving it to her and not loaning it to her, but I didn't catch it. I didn't see what I was doing, because when you struggle with people pleasing, you don't always catch what you need to catch in terms of your relationships with people. And so I didn't catch it eventually. I caught it eventually. What happened was the money that I would give her would be the money that I needed for rent for the next semester until I got my next check. And so I realized that, and then when I would ask for it back, it was a loan to me. And that's when I started to catch it. And I said, I perceived it as, okay, it's a gift to you, but when I need it back, it's a loan to me. And then I have to pay back the loan to you. And then you're also asking for more money. So then that's a gift to you. And so I was so tired with that situation. I was so tired. I was so tired with that situation. So I began to pray and ask God. I said, Lord, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. Give me a solution for how to handle this. And so what happened was I calculated how much the rent was going to be up to February or March, because I got the school check somewhere in January. And so I just wanted to cover February, just in case there was an issue with the school money. And I told the person, I said, you know what? Sure, uh, you can borrow it, because it is my February rent. When I tell you the dynamics of our relationship changed, oh, I mean in a snap, it changed. She immediately started to look at me in a despising, contemptuous, hateful way, because she could no longer control my money, and she had to give it back. She had to give it back. And so when I said that was my February rent, by the time it came around, she had to give it back. And so there were a couple of times she still asked for money, but then once she realized the pattern that she would have to pay it back, she stopped asking. And then she started framing me as a problem, as a person who always needs money, when she was the one who was asking for money, uh, as a person who always needs money, things like that. Well, come to find out, I mean, it all came to a brick wall when she had been crying wolf all that time. She didn't really need my money; she just wanted my money, and she had been crying wolf. And so, by the time she got to a point in her life where she actually needed it, she had to pay it back to me, and I had to take it. I had to take it because it was my February rent, or whatever rent month it was, right? So I say all that to say I had to stop bearing the burden of that person crying wolf in their life. Haters who hate you must bear their own burdens of hate, not you. So her her ability to get money out of me using uh, a crying wolf strategy, and then not being able to use that strategy anymore to get money out of me, created hate on the inside of her towards me. Now I feel like she's always had hate towards me, but uh, this this I think when you call people on their financial gains, that's when the hate increases. Because if a person has been able to control you for so many years and they can't do it anymore, then that hate grows more. And so that hate just continued to develop. Um, um, and I decided that I was not going to bear any more burdens of other people's hate towards me. And it took some time. Now, I'm not saying this is something, you may not have a financial issue with people, right? You may not have a financial issue with people. You may be the type of person who has learned early in life to set boundaries with finances. But there is something in your life where someone is able to cry wolf and pull at you. You just have to figure out what that is. Regardless, whatever decision you make concerning that is going to inspire hate. It's going to encourage them to hate you even more. And so instead of loving you, so then that basically reveals they had no love for you in the first place. They never had, because you shouldn't get so mad and angry. You may get mad and angry immediately, but it shouldn't be long term. It shouldn't be the type of hate that's going to be long term. So you cannot bear their hate. It's the same thing with black people today, bearing the hate of racism, the sting of racism, right? And every time there's a situation with a black person and a white person, there's always hate in the middle of it, or something, or being fueled from it, or so. Okay, at some point you just can't bear that hate anymore. You can't bear the burden of that hate. It's the same thing I say a lot of times about every once in a while Hollywood will want to put out this film about slavery. And it's never about it um being just the the capitalism aspect of it, right? It's always showing on film a black person being beaten on the back, right? Or a black person picking cotton, or a black person in slave wardrobe, a black person being um, tokenized, right? White person getting up in the face of a black person. It's always this sort of punking, let me punk you, right? And if it's always sort of like a humiliation ritual or something like that. Well, I'm tired of those films. And you get people in the comments, if you make a comment about it on Facebook or Twitter or something like that, you get people in the comments say, yeah, but we need to know about our history. We need to know. We have known plenty about our history. We About the history of slavery. We don't need to continue generation after generation bearing that burden on film. And that's what they want. They want to push the slavery, capitalism, colonialism strategies on film, so that we are always reminded. It's like a conditioning exercise. We are always conditioned and reminded about this particular thing. Not the fact that we've had black inventors, not the fact that we have educated black people, not the fact that black people have property and land, businesses, have excelled in sports and entertainment, and not the fact that we've done that. No, they want to remind us every time of that particular issue, and that's bearing the burden of the hate of the colonialists. They need to feel soothed. Every generation, they need to feel soothed. And so seeing a person hung up on a tree, seeing a person being hit by a whip, seeing a person being demoralized, compromised, or they need to see that. It's like a soothing. it's like something that hits the brain, and once they see it, they get their release. Okay, that is their burden. They need to address their burden of hate. It's time out for us taking on their burden of hate, because not only do we have to take on the burden of hate of being segregated and discriminated against and prejudiced and biased against, and only going to the colored sections, and only only dealing with our immediate communities and all that kind of stuff, and then the economic issues, the fallout, burning down our houses, burning down crosses, burning down our communities. Okay, now we have to deal with all of that, the effects of their hate. We shouldn't have to wear their burden of hate. If they hate us, they hate us. That's it. But you got to bear your own burden. So that's what I think. I feel like this means. So haters who hate you must bear their own burdens of hate, not you. Um, Visit reginawhitefavors.com for tips. Um, Thank you very much for listening. All right, so this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Recognize the hater early and put and sustain distance between you and the hater. The best example of this, that I wish, as an individual and entertainer, he had real revelation about, is Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye is the best example of this, because his father hated him early. Like we tell the victim of domestic violence, right, to see them early, or we use today Maya Angelou's quote. If you what's the quote? When people show you who they are, believe them. And we ignore that guidance, continue in the relationship, and because we think we're going to fix it. Sometimes it's embarrassing. Sometimes, I think the majority of the times, we don't want to start over. We're already invested. We're already in the situation. Why don't we just come together and work it out? And we stay in that frame of mind, because we don't frame the person, we don't frame the hater as a problem. We frame the hater as something that can be solved. So we tend to be solution oriented people. So this hate that this person has, it doesn't make any sense for the person to hate. Let me show you who I am. I'm really a nice person. I'm really this. I'm really that. I'm really that. You don't have to hate me. It This kind of reminds me of Rose in the Golden Girls, on the Golden Girls. And there was a lady who had a beautiful tree in front of her house, and she wanted to have it cut down. And Rose kept trying to appeal to the lady. She went to the city council. She did all that she could to try to get the lady to understand that this is a, a tree that has been around for hundreds of years. Why are you trying to cut it down? And so everything kind of comes to a head at the city council meeting, and the woman yells out, I don't want the tree. You can do this or whatever. And it does something in Rose, that she gets up and goes to where the woman is sitting and said, basically, I'm sick of you. I'm tired of you, or whatever. We're going to have our say. And if you don't like it, you can drop dead. And then the woman drops dead, right? And of course, that's for comedic effect. But Rose going after the woman and trying to convince her, and trying to be sort of diplomatic before that city council meeting, is Rose trying to say, I know this situation can be resolved. Maybe if we could cut some of the limbs, cut some of the branches, cut some of the so it doesn't obstruct your view. Anything. Can we sit down and reason together? Can we sit down and have a conversation, more than you just saying, let's cut down a tree? And when you think about that image, then think about any parent-child relationship where the child is being abused and has been abused for so long, and the child has no way out of the situation. But then when the child gets grown and goes off and accomplishes some things on their own, they always have a tendency to to try to come back and reason with the person who hated them, or who continues to hate them. They always try to come back and let's just reason this out. I know what we had going on was in childhood was a struggle. Sometimes maybe I was bad and you had to whip me and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I get that. But we're all adults now. Let's sit down and reason together and have a conversation. Let's have an adult relationship. But when a hater hates you, especially in a parent-child situation like Marvin Gaye Sr. to Marvin Gaye Jr., it doesn't matter what you do. Marvin Gaye was loved by many. He was a global phenomenon. People were truly hurt by his death. They didn't even know that he had that kind of relationship with his father. Not many people. And um, um, he bought his family a house. He gave his mother and father money or whatever. He brought them on stage. He did all different types of stuff to show his love, meaning that his his love is a solution to his hate, or at least that's what he thought. His love, the the demonstration and consistent demonstration of love is a solution to his hate. But the father hated him from the beginning. The father was never going to accept him. Never. The father, from what I learned on a documentary, the mother had a child prior, from a different marriage. I can't remember. And Marvin Gaye Sr. said that her son couldn't come live with them or something. So she gave the son to her sister to raise. So then they get married, and then she gets pregnant with Marvin Gaye Jr. And the father says he doesn't believe the son is his. So he kept this certain narrative of no responsibility. I'm not taking any responsibility. I will marry you, make you whole, but I'm not going to be responsible for the child. So Marvin Gaye Jr., he developed a close relationship with his mother. So during the event of his death, the father provokes the situation in the house, creates a toxic environment, and I believe to get at Marvin to get him to leave. He had been struggling, I guess, with drugs, um, a divorce or something like that, and he decided to come back and live at the house. And you can't have two male egos in the same house, right? Whether they are father and son or just two regular men. And so I believe when you are an abuser, abusers always either groom you for abuse or they provoke a situation to abuse you. And the situation, the father was irritating and frustrating the mother. Um, and like clockwork, she goes to her son for help. And so the son goes out to have it out with his father, and then the father returns to get the gun that the son gave him for protection, returns to get the gun to shoot the son. And a lot of times people look at the situation as at that end of the life type decision he made, that had Marvin Gaye Jr. not tried to fight his father, he would be alive today. No. I believe it's from the very beginning the belief system of the father not accepting the son. And that continued, and that's interpreted as hate, of course, and uh, that hate continued to develop in itself all the way up until that death. In other words, that father again was never going to accept the son. meaning he projected his hate, and he saw his son as a problem, and the son was never going to be accepted, and he projected his love and saw that the whole toxic situation and relationship could be resolved with love. And that's why you see him singing love songs and things like that. That's in his heart. So one person had hate in his heart and one person had love in his heart. And the only way that you could likely change the situation is if you put distance between you two. Because if your presence coming into the house uh, frustrates all the demons in that house, uh, it will likely be a situation where the demons are going to overtake you, because there is no process with the person who hates you. They haven't sat down to grieve over their hate. They haven't sat down to challenge it as a belief system. They haven't sat down to think about it and reflect on it and journal and cry about and do all that they can to try to resolve it in their heart. If they are a ball of hate in a body, there's nothing you can do uh, to show them different. You're just going to have to put distance. Uh, Marvin Gaye didn't necessarily need to go and live in his parents' house. He had a brother who had a house right on the side of the parents. He could have gone over there. So on some level, did I say Robin? Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye, he did not necessarily have to go to his parents' house. He's a grown up. He could have gone to his brother's house, which was on the side of the parents' house, and so he could have worked something out with his brother. I don't know if his brother was married, but he could have worked something out that could create some distance. But I think in returning to the home, I think something stirred up on the inside of him as he thought about the relationship that he had with his father, and that there was something that he was, not only was the father looking for an opportunity to confront the son, I feel like the son was looking for an opportunity to confront the father. Now, uh, did it have to result in death? No, but his last words were, I something to the effect is, I couldn't do it myself. I was trying to get him to do it or something like that. I couldn't do it myself, meaning that he couldn't commit suicide himself. His father killing him solved the problem. So, in other words, the father who decides to go get the gun and shoots the son, he has resolved his hate in a sense. The person who is a representative or a target for hate, he resolved it. And the person who was hated, he found a way to resolve the hate too. But nothing changed in the family. There was no love that came as a result. So if you have a situation with a family member that is who is provoking you to anger, that could be a mother, a father, brother, sister, you need to put distance between them. They're very dangerous, because they're dangerous simply because they're not interested in hearing any difference about the situation. Just they're not interested in seeing you differently. They project you as a problem that they got to resolve. And don't think for one moment they won't pick up a gun or shoot you. I mean, shoot you and kill you and set you up for murder or something like that. They will do it if problem is all they see in their head about you and not solution. They got to get the problem out of their head. It's like a fantasy, right? All they see is one thing about you, and they got to get it out of their head. And so recognize the hater early and put and sustain some distance between you and the hater. That means you may need to live out of town, or you can live in the same town, one in one area and another in another area, and don't go to family reunions. Don't go to certain get-togethers. Don't go to um, holiday meetings. Don't do that. You may have to put some emotional, social, financial distance between you and that hater, because that person is dangerous. So Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Recognize the hater early. Put and sustain distance between you and the hater. Visit reginawhitefavorites.com for tips. Thank you very much for listening. All right, so this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series, and the topic is when dealing with a hater, the goal is to obey God. Recognize the hater early and obey God only. So in a previous video, I talk about how you need to put distance between you and the hater, right? Once you recognize it early. And I'm not saying it's usually when you become conscious of the fact that this person hates you, right? Once you understand that, then you need to put distance between you and the hater. When dealing with a hater, the goal is to obey God. So what that basically means that you can put distance between you and the person, but then God may want you to pray for the person, right? Because the person's soul is still at stake or something is going on with that person. And a lot of times God will use you to help the person, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a return to the relationship. There's no relationship that's going to be able to be formed consistently with the hater. There's no way around it, right? Because you are in danger. It's like Joseph in the Bible. His brothers hated him uh, because he was favored from his father. The father gave him a coat of many colors. Then Joseph has a dream about being over his brothers, right? And then they um, they conspire to kill him. One of the brothers, I think Reuben, is the one who says, "No, don't kill him. Let's." And they put him in some hole or something like that. And then a caravan of whoever was coming, and so they said, "Let's sell them to those people," right? And so then Joseph is sold, um, and then he's in Egypt in prison. It's a number of narrative issues there, and then he becomes second in command over Egypt. And so later, there's a famine in the land with the family. Um, so there was distance between Joseph and his father and family. And so there's a famine in the land that leads the family to go to Egypt for help, right, for bread. Joseph is the one who's in charge, and he sees his family, but he looks so different that the family doesn't recognize him. Long story short, they end up sitting, I guess, sitting at a table together or something like that. And Joseph reveals himself. Everybody cries. Um, and then there's more that goes on after that. And so Joseph, in that situation, when he was in authority, he had the authority and the power. He could have literally eradicated those haters, but he had to obey God in that sense, right? God telling him to feed. God didn't necessarily tell him to feed him in that scripture, but it's sort of understood, okay? Because these are all people coming for help. But he could have he could have separated the family off and did something to them, punished them, threw them all in prison, right? Because he was in prison. He could have done to them what they did to him. That's what I'm basically saying. He could have done to them what they did to him, and so he decided not to do it. Um, and he hugged them. He obeyed God. Um, he was able to build a place for them or something like tent encampment or something, and they didn't have to live in fear while he was still in charge. Now, whatever happened to them after that, I don't know if they died off before the new Pharaoh came. Whatever happened to them after that, I don't know. But um, but they didn't receive any punishment or something like that. So in that case, when dealing with a hater, the goal is to obey God. A lot of times that has something to do with making sure that you don't operate in pride, making sure that you don't operate outside of God's God's divine ordering, God's divine guidance, God can show mercy and grace on whomever he wants to show mercy and grace on. Even if that person hated you, even if that person mistreated you, right? If God wants to show mercy and grace, because that's still their relationship with God. Now, there are limits. There's still limits. You obey God, but there's still limits. The family could never come back into the palace. They came into the palace at one time where Joseph revealed himself, but as you read in the passage, he had tents built or something like that. They had tents on the land. So, because it's too dangerous to bring them on the inside, it's too dangerous. Even his father putting the coat of many colors on Joseph in front of his brothers is provoking anger in the brothers. It's provoking the situation. Even if the father was even if the father thought he was doing a good thing, it's still provoking anger. And then the brothers conspiring against each other, conspiring with each other against Joseph, that's still, if he brought them in the palace and gave them jobs or something like that, there's the danger of the brothers conspiring with all of the other Egyptians to overthrow Joseph. So he had to still sustain power. He had to still sustain authority. You can love the person, but hate the hate. And so you have to recognize the hater early, meaning that recognize the people who are conspiring against you. But when God says, I need you to do this for this person, it's always a lesson in it. It's not always to humble you, it's to show you how important it is to humble yourself. And so you have to obey God, because a lot of times when God is wanting to do something in somebody's life, prick their heart so that they can see that they're wrong. If you get in the way of that process, you could lose what you got. So you see some rappers today who have made it big, but then they leave their mothers behind homeless, right? I still think you have an obligation. I'm not in relationship with my mother simply because it is a Marvin Gaye senior to Marvin Gaye junior type relationship. And so, out of safety reasons, out of sanity reasons, we are estranged, and we're going to remain that way. However, when God says, I need you to do this for your mother, or I need you to do this for your mother, I need you to do this for your mother, I have to obey God, because that's my relationship with God. And my relationship with God is always going to be obedience um, type relationship, and also service to whomever God has assigned me to serve. So when you are dealing with the hater, the goal is to obey God, even if you may not like it. But it's not up to you to keep what is for somebody else, just because of how that person treated you. When I was homeless and I was going through a lot of what I was going through, my family was nasty, very nasty. I mean, whatever was on the inside of them, it came out. It was nasty, and so they did me dirty. And no, we are not in relationship with each other. We're not going to be in relationship with each other. They cannot go where God is taking me. Not together. Like in the situation with Joseph and his brothers, they did end up going to where God had Joseph, but they couldn't be together. So the dream was true that his stock was higher than his brother's stock, meaning that Joseph had authority and a power as second in command to the Pharaoh. And they did end up going to where Joseph was, or is at the time, but they couldn't serve alongside of him. They couldn't serve alongside him. And so that's a decision that they made when they saw Joseph as a problem and not a solution. That is that is the repercussions of a hasty decision to put him in a well and then sell him off. Okay. So when dealing with the hater, the goal is to obey God, recognize the hater early, and that you see here is there, that may be some distance. It may not be time for you to obey God at that moment. It may come much later. Your recognition and obedience may be a distance of 10 years, right? Uh, it could be 5 years, 10 years, 6 months, right? It just depends on what God would have you to do for that person. And all that matters is literally what God would have you have for you to do with that person. That person is not going to serve alongside you. It's too dangerous to have that hater because the hater hasn't changed his mind. So, overcoming hate setback series. When dealing with a hater, the goal is to obey God, recognize the hater early, and obey God only. Visit reginawhitefavorites.com for more tips. Thank you very much for listening. All right, this is overcoming hate setback series. So the topic today is about completion, finish and complete. So finish and complete what God tells you to do concerning the hater. Then do not do more than what God has outlined. Do not add more to the instruction. So if the instruction is to do X amount of things or one thing for the hater who has hated you for many, many years, don't go beyond that instruction. Essentially, don't go beyond that instruction. Because what happens is you think that because the hater needs help and you are a solution to the problem, that it could easily turn into a friendship or a reconciliation. Sometimes God can just have you guys to reconcile, to break um, that cycle, generational cycle, trauma or whatever, and then you continue to go your separate ways. It is not always a reconciliation opportunity for you now to turn to the relationship. A hater who hates you is a hater who hates you. They're going to always hate you. That's why um, when you think about situations where there was reconciliation between a domestic abuser and then the victim, they always try to go back um, because they believe they can solve the problem, and then it eventually leads to their death, right? Sometimes the situation is essentially just do whatever God outlined for you to do with the situation. Figure out what it is God wants you to do. Make a list if you got to make a list of it. Pray to God about it. Find scripture to support it. Just do whatever God would have for you to do for the situation, and then don't expect anything else. Don't invite the person to your house. Don't. Furthermore, don't even let the person know where you live. Don't never don't let them know where you work unless they find out that information themselves. Don't give them more than whatever God is giving them because it's God's grace. It's God's mercy. And he is the one who measures it out. Like you have like a measuring spoon, right? And you're measuring sugar or flour or something like that, and you don't want to put much more of it into the bowl that you're putting together. It could be like a cookie mix or something like that, or cornbread. And if you put too much milk or cream into the bowl, it's going to flood out uh, the other mixture, right? They're all not going to be compatible. And so you have to be a baking person. I understand. I'm not necessarily a baking person, so I'm just kind of winging it. But everyone understands the measuring cup. And if the instructions on the box tells you to measure out one half, one third, one fourth of an ingredient, then that's what you do. Whoever together the box already knows what's supposed to go in it and how much is supposed to be measured per ingredient. It is not up to you to determine, well, I'm going to do much more than what the box say and the instructions say because I want to do something else. No, it's going to mess up the final product. And so I learned how to cook from the hamburger helper box. I was a latchkey kid. I had to take care of my brothers, and so uh, before my mother came home, I had to cook them something. And so that's how I learned how to read instructions and apply instructions, and then you look at the final product. And so someone has already designed the meal, the outcome of the meal, based upon how much needs to be measured while you are putting it together. Again, it's not up to you to determine, I'm going to do this and this and this, I'm going to substitute. And usually, if there's substitute uh, potential or opportunity, it'll say it on the box. You can substitute this, you can substitute that, or something like that. But the guidelines of the box, the instructions of the box, they already tell you exactly what you need to put together, what needs to be measured out, what needs to go into one bowl, what needs to go into a separate bowl, and then you bring it all together, and then you put it in the pan, and then you put it in the oven, and then you turn the oven to 375, right, and then let it cook for 45 minutes, and then you take it out, let it cool, and eat. Those are your instructions. Those are your directions. Okay. It's the same thing when you are dealing with a person that God would have you to do something for. Uh, Whatever it is, when dealing with the hater, finish and complete what God told you to do concerning the hater. Don't do more than what God has outlined. Because God has every right to his grace and mercy and how he wants to measure it out. And if you do too much more than what you're supposed to do with the situation, it's going to affect the person's outcome. If the person was praying to God for mercy and God uses you to give the person mercy, when you do something beyond what God told you to do, you're now actually operating in pride. Even if you feel like it's a good thing, you're operating in pride because now you are going against what God would have you to do for the person. So, for instance, what's a good example? A person hated on you, and they called you out of the blue about information. You know, they needed information about something. Like I had a friend. Here's a good example. I had a friend. Uh, she really wasn't a friend, turns out, but we all worked together at the same job. And I would run my mouth again talking about the school money that I got. And she called me one day out of the blue and asking me about how 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 to set up the financial aid and things like that from college. So I told her how to do that. And then later she wanted to take me out to the movies as as um, as a thank you. And I said, oh, well, she may be coming around to friendship or something like that. And um, and I should have left it at that. I should have left it at that. The only we went to the movies. I think we saw The Green Mile, and then that was it. We separated after that. And so, in my people pleasing days, I guess I wanted more, or I interpreted it as more. And so later, she wanted me to move into her place as a roommate. I was paying 650, and she was offering 275. And um, now that I look back on the situation, it was really to get herself back on track. She didn't have any money. She couldn't rely on family. She used the fact that I was getting school money as a way to bring in rent dollars. Um, she was just struggling. Well, in 3 months, she got herself back on track, and then everything began to shift with not only our friendship but the house. She became a hater of me, meaning that um, she I don't think she ever wanted a roommate. I think she just needed money. And it would have been better for her to just humble herself and ask for the money than to ask for somebody to come into her house and live. Because I thought we were going good, everything's fine, and within 8 months I had to leave because it got that violent and dangerous. Well, the finish, and if I had left it at giving her information about um, the, the financial aid and how to start it, how to initiate it, that would have been enough. I didn't even need to go out to the movies with her. But say for instance, I add that to the mix and I went to the movies with her and then separated after that. That was enough. That was the finish and complete what God tells you to do concerning the hater. At the time, I didn't know that she was a hater. She revealed herself once I got into a state of disobedience with God, because at the time, I was born again Christian and she wasn't Christian. And there's a scripture in the Bible that says, "Do not be not unequally yoked with unbelievers." So I was wrong to move into her house. But if I stopped with giving her the information and adding to the mix, going to the movies because she wanted to thank me, I wouldn't have had the trouble that I had after that. That's all I needed. When I decided to add to the mix of moving into a house, that's when I operated in pride. It was fear, but it was in pride. So finish and complete what God tells you to do concerning the hater. If you find yourself being all happy about, okay, I'm gonna do this, or okay, I'm gonna do this, you are already opposite. You are already operating outside of the immediate instructions for the situation. That means you are moving yourself into pride because you're saying, well, God doesn't really know how to give a person mercy. I do. God doesn't really know how to give a person grace. I do. God doesn't know how to give a person uh, forgiveness. I do. I'm the one who knows how to do this. And so I'm going to take over the reins of grace, mercy, and forgiveness. And and I'm going to project it and impart it on that person. And then the person is going to see me and be happy and accept me. That's really what you're doing. The hater will never accept you. I cannot stress that enough. The hater will never accept you because at the end of the day, they hate themselves. And so to accept you is not to accept themselves. It's to call attention to something that's on the inside of themselves without having to call attention to it. So finish and complete what God tells you to do concerning the hater. Then do not do more than what God has aligned. Do not add more to the instruction. God is the one who doles out and measures um, grace, mercy, forgiveness, um, correction, wisdom, instruction, direction, all that kind of stuff. It's like the scripture in Numbers. When the cloud moves, the people move. When the cloud stops, the people stop. Sometimes the cloud moved um, and stopped somewhere for a day. Sometimes it moved and stopped somewhere for 3 months. Sometimes it moved and stopped somewhere for 3 years. It's the cloud represents instruction. And so when God gives you instruction, understand, truly seek God's guidance to understand what the instruction is and follow the instruction as instructed. Okay? Do not add more to the instruction. All right, so visit regina1favorites.com for more tips. Um, Thank you very much for listening. All right, Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Help people, even haters, in a way that God would have you to help them. And so this means limits. This means limits. I got this revelation from God when I was going through my homeless seasons. And my mother struggled with my middle brother. I'm the oldest. It's three siblings, and then there's a middle child. And she's always at the time I was the one who actually needed help. My brother, she had already helped him. He had lived at her house, her apartment for a time, and then I had come along and I needed help because I had lost my job and everything. Um, and so he was jealous of the help that she was giving me, so he kept pulling at her. But that's not only, but he's always sort of pulled at her, you know, needing $25 for gas here, needing some money for his rent or something like that. And so here it is, she's trying to stretch herself thin, trying to help somebody else who's already uh, at a state where he can help himself versus a person who is now entering a state who is struggling. I graduated from college 2005. Everything kind of took a shift in 2006. I ended up having to move back to Dallas. I got a job 07, 08, and then the recession hit. And then I lost that job. And then I was homeless, living in homeless shelters, struggling with family, etc. And then everything got back on track 2013, and I was able to return to teaching. And what you hear is a lot of people who don't really want to help you, they love to make this type of statement. I only help people who are helping themselves. Okay, that's kind of a weird statement. It comes from a place of pride because they don't really want to help you. Uh, but they're saying, if you're helping yourself, I'm going to help you. Well, if they're helping themselves, why would you need to help them? They're already helping themselves. They know how to help themselves. You're trying to give them new meaning to them helping themselves when they already know how to do that. The person who actually needs help is the person who's asking you for help. A lot of times the people that you help don't even ask you for help. You just take it upon yourself to bear the burden of helping them, but they haven't opened their mouth to ask you for help for anything. They'll take it. They will definitely take it, but they'll hate you for it because they'll hate you in a sense that they felt like they had to take it. If it felt like you pushed it upon them, they didn't want to pass up on the opportunity, so they took it, and now they hate you. But they always say that kind of statement when they don't want to actually help you. And the help is not always money. The help could be um, direction. It could be wisdom. It can be understanding. Okay, if I'm down right now, I lost my job the the during the financial recession, but the other people around me still have jobs, and that could be because they started their jobs 20, 25 years ago. Okay, they represent instruction. Maybe I should have found a job that was a type of job that had more longevity. Well, at the same time, in my defense, I was coming out of college. So then the instruction would be I should have prepared better before I left college. I should have already secured a job before I left college. Now, I did have something prior to moving to 2006, but it was part time. So I didn't have job workforce preparation in mind while I was going to school. I was so involved in school. I was so enamored with school that I didn't adopt a 2 year transition plan. That's something that I teach right now to my students so they have an understanding about that. Okay, then that's wisdom. That's instruction. That's understanding. Sure, I might get mad at you telling me that. I usually don't. You'll never know if I'm mad at something. I'll listen to you. I pray in my mind about it. God, what is it that you would have for me to understand about this situation? And then I may mumble a little bit, but then I will apply what you have to say. I'm not the kind of person who will physically reject you, who would show the 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 physical signs on my face, or or the verbal signs through my mouth, or I won't act like an adult toddler jumping up and leaving the house and cussing. I'm not that kind of person. If you are criticizing me, I may not like it, and a lot of times the criticism doesn't come from wanting to be helpful. They're really criticizing themselves. That's why I will still listen and see what's going on. And then I'll pick out what I think God is really trying to tell me in the situation. So my mother struggled with her middle child and always helping him and helping him with his kids and things like that. And one day I said, out of my soul, out of my spirit, and it was God who told it to me, but I received it also for myself as instruction. And he said to her through me, help God in the way that God would have you to help the person. Let me make sure I say that right. Help God in the way, help the person in the way that God would have you to help the person. There's a God way that he would have you to help that person, and then there's your way. And your way is not advancing the person. The person keeps coming back and asking for money. While you have a person at the house who actually needs money, doesn't have a job, trying to find a job, trying to get herself back on track, you are running after a person who's already helping himself. That's a strange ideology, but that's what you see today in communities. You have more dollars, money going into communities that are already rich. They're, they already have resources. You don't need to give them more money for resources, which leaves all of the other communities abandoned and neglected. Uh, boarded up buildings, no police support. Um, uh, the the city doesn't come out and mow, right? You have all these areas that actually need help, but you're going to now take all dollars consistently. And these people are already rich and got more than enough money. You're going to take more dollars and put it into communities where they're already helping themselves. Whereas the communities over here need more help. Okay. That's how God put it to me for my mother. And I didn't spit it out as a way to reject it. I actually said it, then my ears heard it, and it made all the sense in the world. It still was a word that applied to her in her situation. She rejected the word. She decided to continue helping him and his kids, even though his kids already had parents. I mean, had their own parents. She still did. And then later she ended up going to the hospital because of a sickness that sort of like overexhaustion or something like that. She was in the hospital. I don't know if she was straight in a coma, but they put her out for a long time. And then I was the one who ended up having to help her because the person that she kept helping, he didn't come and see her. And the person who kept putting distance between us, the the younger child, he didn't fly out to help her. So the person that she kept rejecting and hating is the person who ended up helping her. And at that time, I had to obey God. and and it made sense to obey God because I was still living at her house, still working some freelance jobs, right, to bring in some money to give to her, and so it made sense that I was the one to help her. But it's very interesting though, and now did she ever learn her lesson? I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I don't believe so because she got up out of that sick bed. Oh yeah, and I was the one who had to pray for her. She was technically on her deathbed, and she had called out and asked me to pray for her, and so I went to the room, found a scripture in the Bible. I prayed, found a scripture in the Bible, and asked God how to do it, how He would have me to pray for her. And then I found the scripture, and I went to go pray for her. And then not too long after that, she recovered. So the very person that she hated, continues to hate, has framed as a problem, scapegoated, has pit me and my brothers against each other, all that good stuff, is the very person that God had me to pray to her about. And God gave her a warning before that situation happened, her medical situation happened. Help people in the way that God will have you to help them. So my mother and I and the family are all estranged. It's going to stay that way for both safety and sanity reasons. But I've already made up in my mind, and that's not a but to cancel out anything. I've already made up in my mind, when God says I need you to do this or do that or do this for them, I'm going to do it. We will never sit down and have bread together. We may we're going to reconcile, of course, but we will never return to a relationship. That's not going to happen. It's not safe for me. It has never been safe for me. God just kept me safe in that situation. But help people, even haters, in the way that God would have you to help them. Understand the limits that God has already put forth with the situation. Don't go beyond those limits. Help people in the way that God would have you to help them. Go to God first about how to help somebody. Only God truly knows what they need. It is not up to you to determine what you think they need. Only God knows truly what they need. And so a lot of times people will ask you just to ask you, just to see if you're going to do it. So they're really crying wolf and they don't really need your help. But when they truly need your help, they have cried wolf so much and you have given so much, you don't have it to give anymore. And sometimes, even in that situation, you still may have to give it because God is asking you to do it. So don't burden yourself. Don't burden your heart. Don't try to seek to be accepted. Don't people please. Don't do anything that's going to stretch you thin. Set boundaries. Put some distance between you, emotional distance. Don't let them take up all your time. Don't let them uh, fill you with a bunch of distractions just because they're bored. Don't do anything that's going to get in the way of the plans that God has for you. So, therefore, you have to set the right type of limits, and God is your best limit uh, person who would tell you, this is what I want you to do, and only do that. So, this is Overcoming Hate Setback Series. Help people, even haters, in the way that God would have you to help them. Visit ReginaWhiteFavors.com for more tips. Thank you very much for listening.